You're listening to a special edition Zweig podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting guru Mark Zweig and his team of experts straight talk in your ear. Mark has more than 30 years of experience helping AEP and environmental firms thrive, and these podcasts deliver his invaluable management, industry, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter and the Zweig Letter podcasts let you develop professionally wherever you are.
Hey folks, this is Randy Wilburn. I want to welcome you again to another episode of the Zweig Letter podcast. Today we have actually a special episode. We've got a roundtable discussion with some very, very smart individuals. I've assembled some of our interns as well as one of our newer employees to come join me today to just kind of talk about the future of the design industry from the perspective of the millennial workforce. And it should be interesting to just kind of hear what they have to say. And so those of you that are out there that are part of my generation, whatever generation you want to call it, generation X or Y or whatever. And I'm not a baby boomer, but those of us that are between our 40s and our 50s, I think it's important for us to have some perspective about this generation coming up behind us, specifically the millennial group, those 18 to 35-year-olds right now that are in the workforce and that are actually doing some amazing things. I'm always blown away at the iteration and the ideas that I see come out of a lot of these young people, especially like these gentlemen that are in the room with me today. So honestly, even if you say, well, that person's not an engineer, that person's not an architect, so I'm not going to listen to them, you'd be wise to take note of what the next generation is saying about things, both from a work perspective, work-life balance, when they talk about just the things that are important to them. I think the challenge that we have, especially in the design industry, is tuning out this younger generation and not necessarily giving them the time of day, if you will, because it's like, well, I've been there, done that, so they have to learn the hard way like I did. And I think that's a unfortunate focus that a lot of owners take in these design firms. So I really want to encourage you to kind of listen closely to what these guys are saying, and whatever nugget of truth you can take out of what we're going to share today, take that and use that for your benefit. And seeing as which, even I forget some things. I mean, this is our second go round of recording this because the first time I forgot to hit the pause button. So I don't know if my first intro was better than this one, but this is the one that you're going to get. So, we'll take it from there. But I've got Jordan Barrett with me. He's a new intern. And by the way, we get all of our interns from the great University of Arkansas. Arkansas, we are here based in Fayetteville, Arkansas, which is where Zweig Group is based. We used to be based in Boston, but we're now in a true college town, and we have been able to mine some of the greatest talent in the world right out of this university that's just down the road, where about almost 30,000 students attend there. And so they're great minds, and I'm always blown away when I hear some of our interns talking back and forth, because it's almost like we're in a mini Silicon Valley here. Everybody's excited about opportunities, and they're not being limited by the fact that they're in the Midwest. And, people say, oh, well, you're surrounded by pastures and cows and pigs and chickens and all this other stuff. Yeah, but, great ideas happen and emanate anywhere. So I think we're certainly benefiting from that here in Northwest Arkansas. But again, I've got Jordan Barrett, I've got Sanjay Jenkins, an outstanding young man, and Chad Coldiron, I think, who's got probably one of the coolest names that I've ever heard. And certainly he is more hot than cold, and I know he's heard that a million times, but just an outstanding guy, consultant that works here in the office at Zweig, and has really been doing some amazing things since he got here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is going to be more of a roundtable discussion, so certainly I just encourage you to take from it what you can and what you can use, but I think it should be a lot of fun. So, Chad, without further ado, man, I'm so glad that you came to join us this morning, and I'd love to just kind of hear your thoughts about your perspective on things from your generation with this industry, what you've learned so far, and where you kind of see things going, and just talk.
Well, thank you for having us all on this morning. As a millennial, I can tell you right now that I do not speak for every one of us. But what I do know is that most of the people that I talk to in my age in the workforce, we really just want to bring value to the company or the firm that we're working with. One of the best things about Zweig Group is that it really allows us to do that here. Since my first week, one of our longtime consultants, he's actually in an office in New York, Ted Majeka, he told me on my first day, learning this industry is going to be like drinking from a fire hose. And man, he was right. But for me, the most fun is the change and the growth. And in that itself is the real X factor at Zweig Group. The attitude for planning for the future around here is amazing, and we don't dwell on the past as it's something that we know we cannot change. The focus is growing at Zweig Group brand. And that really is kind of the focus of Northwest Arkansas too. Randy kind of touched on that. We're one of the fastest growing metropolitan areas, I think maybe behind Minneapolis, St. Paul, and a couple others in the big markets. Basically, if it has to do with the future of Zweig Group and growth, there's a really good chance I'm going to be able to get any director in the building to really jump in and grow that conversation with me. Really, some of the best takeaways, I guess, that I've had from my time here so far are just going to be I got the most clear definition of what marketing is I've ever had in my entire life. And the reason for that is the realization that it's pretty clear that the AEC industry is a little bit behind in the way it needs to support marketing functions, and they can do more than they currently do. It's kind of obvious if you look at some of the patterns, like the names of firms or some of the block letters they have in their lobbies. But first you have to make sure that they really understand the definition of marketing as an organization. And that's what we do here at Zweig Group. We can go in from the top down and really define that for everyone in the organization, all the way from the person up front, all the way to your director of marketing or anyone in charge there. Basically, the firms that invest more in real marketing, they just outperform other firms. It's plain and simple, and it's definitely a trend that anyone in the business can see these days. So, getting to sit in on some of these things and really just start to learn this industry has been a real eye opener for me. The growth and the change is the challenge that I was looking for in coming over to this industry, and really just coming to work every day with some of the minds that are in this office is really the true blessing that I feel like I have right now.
Okay, well that's cool. So let's take this a little further, because I would love to know. And I think the audience would like to hear, what were your perceptions before you got involved in this industry? You came out of the insurance industry, is that correct?
I was, yes.
Yeah, okay. And just for everyone's edification, at Zweig, we have found talented people in just about any industry and brought them in and have, I don't know if I could use Zweig as a verb, but Zweiged them up to the point where they get it and are able to add value to just about any conversation that we would have with a client. But I mean, you came out of a different industry, and I'm curious to know, and this might be helpful for the listening audience. What was your perception of engineers and architects before you actually got involved?
Well, I'll be honest. One of the most surprising things to me is the high level involvement of some of these principal architects and engineers. They run these companies. These are their brainchilds. They're for the most case there isn't the big business guy who came out of the Harvard Business School that's actually running these highly successful firms. And for them to grow to where they are, just coming from someone who or a mind as focused as an engineer's can be, it is really a testament of how hard these guys work, because it's not easy for them to get out there and do all the functions that your business needs to grow, because they are architects and engineers. And I've got a family member who's an architect. We see buildings differently, we see roads differently, we see everything differently.
Yeah.
So that's one of the cool perspectives I think about being an architect or an engineer is, engineers, I have a friend who I think looks at everything and he tries to figure out how he could take it apart and put it back together.
Right.
And then all my brother wants to talk about when we see a building is the ceiling structure, how the windows are put in, and those are just perspectives that I've never gotten before. So to kind of get to dig into the mind of these people a little bit doing what we do, it's very interesting. It's safe to say that we all think and see things differently every day, and you just never know what the person next to you is really thinking until you open up the conversation.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point. I mean, I think when you think of the built environment and you think of the value that good engineers and architects bring to the table, and the fact that a lot of them, like you said, are able to switch gears in a business context and physically run their business, but then also do great design at the same time. All of those people that are out there that are doing that are to be applauded, because it is not an easy task. It's almost like running two jobs. It's almost like having two jobs. And it's also one of the reasons why really good engineers and architects that understand business and how to run it are so successful, and they're almost head and shoulders above the rest. And so and fortunately for us as consultants, management consultants to the design industry, we're able to come in and kind of provide that experience and kind of maybe shorten that gap that a lot of firms have in terms of the ability from a business perspective to run things the way that they need to be run, because they do such great design, but then sometimes they come up short on the business side of things. And so, I'd like to think, and this is not to toot our own horn here at Zweig Group, but I'd like to think that we're able, in a lot of instances, from a consulting standpoint, to bridge that gap for firms and just help them get to a greater understanding of their strengths and weaknesses, and how even in those weaknesses that you can, seek out the help of a good consultant that will, kind of help you, with those issues that you're not as strong in. And it's just one of those things that just makes perfect sense, right? And a lot of times we never ask for help until we absolutely need it. But I think especially in this industry, when you're doing something as important as building roads or designing buildings that don't collapse and bridges that don't collapse, and that's hard work. And so, we can't expect you to do everything, but again, you have to get your businesses in the type of shape that allow you to be successful and to continue to go out and making and designing great things. So, I mean, you bring up a great point, and you're right. Engineers and architects look at things totally differently than we do. And I've always appreciated that, no more though than when I came to Zweig and understood what it was like working for the design industry. So I've always counted it a pleasure to serve in this industry, because I know I'm doing something. It's not so much that it's so noble, but it's that, wow, I'm actually helping out people that are really doing great things in our society. So, and I know that's a little hokey. Maybe I should have some background music to go with that, but but that's the deal. But no, I appreciate that. I'd be curious, Sanjay, to know, you just got into things a couple of months ago, and you've been working with us now, and you actually are an entrepreneur in your own right. And I'd be curious to get your perspective on things and what you've seen so far, just coming in and helping out. You've kind of touched your feet in M&A. You've done some work on the marketing side of things, and you've also helped us with executive search. And I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are about the industry and what some of your perceptions were coming in versus what they are today.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me on this podcast. This is actually really exciting. And I came into working at Zweig Group with very little sort of information, any sort of knowledge, preconceptions about the design industry. I would say that I've always been more on the tech side. I think that's part of the sort of the trend with some millennials, and right. So I didn't really think about the built environment, just what engineers and architects do, but if you spend a little bit of time thinking about it, you realize, everything that you do is related to what engineers and architects have done, like the spaces that we occupy. And I think that's really, really special. coming in, I mean, I'm a marketing intern primarily, but again, as you said, I've done executive search work, and helped other parts of the organization. And something that I've noticed in the architecture engineering industry is that there's a lot of potential for marketing to be like a huge value add for everybody, especially in the digital space. I think the AE industry, and this is not necessarily a bad thing, is sort of like lagging in terms of digital media.
Behind the eight ball,
yeah.
if you will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not. It is. It's the elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just I'm constantly reminding leaders of firms that, look, you guys have to embrace this social culture that we're in. Everything's being done. I mean, I'm holding up my phone here. Everything's being done on this device. People are consuming so much information, and I keep telling firms that if they're not on here as much as they are on other things, that they're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities. So
absolutely, like I think right now all of the attention's on mobile, on the digital media. Not all, but like most, I would say. And I think it's important that anyone in any sort of business understands the importance of having some sort of presence on these platforms. And that's something that I've really tried to push here at Zweig Group. We've been sort of revamping our whole Instagram strategy, and just I'm gonna sort of like segue over here for a little bit. I think Instagram is the single most powerful tool that the AE industry has at its disposal. Instagram and Pinterest, just because engineers and architects build things that people can see. These are tangible spaces, and they're beautiful spaces that need to be shared. And I think a lot of firms need to sort of just spend a little bit more time telling their story and sharing the things that they create with the world, because people are interested. People want to know how these things are put together. They want to know what's happening, what the trends are, and people care about that.
yeah, no, you bring up a great point, and it's so funny because, I mean, it's one of the reasons why Facebook bought Instagram.
Yep.
I mean, Zuckerberg is no joke.
Level,
he understands it and gets it. I mean, and now, they basically have taken Instagram and pivoted and added new features. Mm-hmm. They have, they're right up there with Snapchat as far as the capabilities that Instagram can do now with the stories.
Right.
So it's important for people to understand that, and I get it. I mean, I'm 47, and I know that there are people that are my age and that are older that are like, I just don't have time for that. All I need to do is do this next project that I'm working on. But the reality is that if you want to set your firm up for long-term success, you constantly need to be thinking about what's around the corner. If you are acting nostalgic about the way things used to be, that's the problem that you run into.
Right.
And that's the issue that we see a lot in the design industry. And we talk about it all the time. I've talked about it with people like Will Schneer from Big Red Dog and others about, his whole mantra is, we want to be a stodge-free environment. When you think of most engineering firms, you think of stodge, you think of, all buttoned up approach and this is that. And I get it. It's important. I mean, what engineers do and what architects do are important. I'm not belittling that. My point is simply that sometimes we need to get outside of ourselves and see what everybody else is doing and understand it within the context of what we're trying to do. So you're right. I mean, one of the things that I will say is on Instagram and especially on Pinterest, people in the interior design space, which is part of the design industry, they use it all day long.
Oh, yeah.
And they kill it.
They do.
On Pinterest. Because my wife gets a ton of ideas from some really top interior designers from some of the companies that are actually clients of ours here at Zweig. So, I mean, there are ways to utilize that. And I know that there are only so many ways that you can snap a photo of a brick or of concrete being poured, or of rebar, or you fill in the blank, any item or product that comes out of the design space. But you have to understand, really, you're just telling a story.
Absolutely.
And my idea would be simply to maybe tell a story of a project that you're doing from start to finish, because what you'll find is that you will find an audience for that story. People that you might not even think are even relevant, but that are relevant, and that people will start to hear about things, and then all of a sudden it catches on, and then Channel 11 calls you and says, "Look, we want to do a story on this building that you're building because you've told such a compelling narrative on Instagram. We'd like to learn more about it."
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're on the evening news
That's
at
how it
6 and at
happens.
11, right? I
Right.
mean, so and you can't pay for that kind of exposure. You can't. I mean, so you're absolutely right, and I think, I mean, I'd love it if you have any other tips or advice that you might want to share, just in terms of what you know about it. I know you've started a company called Boxy, and it's a really cool company as an aside, and we try to hire people that are really innovative and entrepreneurial in their thinking, and so Sanjay, you've definitely been that way, but I mean, tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are about the different platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, how it might be relevant. Because some people, like I said, are looking at this and saying, look, my 11-year-old's on Snapchat. I'm not about to get on Snapchat and start talking about any projects that I'm working on. I get it. But why don't you just talk a little bit about, some of these different social media platforms.
I can do this all day.
I know,
actually.
I know you can.
So with my company Boxy, which I actually founded with Jordan over here, a lot of our success came from using Instagram. We were able to, grow our audience, and I really have to say, I mean, this is mostly Jordan's doing. We were able to grow our audience organically very quickly, and a lot of that was just telling our story very organically.
Yeah.
What Boxy is, it's a pet subscription box company. Toys and treats for cats and dogs. Every box we send to a customer, we send one to an animal shelter. Right. That's the story. That's the narrative. We're giving back.
It's like Tom's shoes for pets.
Absolutely, pretty much, yeah. And tools like Instagram, tools like Facebook, Snapchat, they've all been really great ways for us to tell our story, and we've derived a lot of value from that. And I think. Just sort of like going back to the AE industry and where the strengths are, I think like if you're an architect and you design something just gorgeous, your phone now has the capability to take almost DSLR level photos. Like
4K. It shoots. It shoots in 4K video. So
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
It doesn't. You can do so much damage just from your cell phone now. So I would say. Do a lot of really just beautiful photographs on Instagram, and when you post it, don't just post and say here's tell your story in the description, and then when you're trying to build out your sort of organic audience, you really got to leverage hashtags. And I know it's really cliche to say you use the hashtags, but there is a lot of value. We grew our audience at Boxy significantly. Just making sure that we stuck to the 11 plus hashtag philosophy. And these hashtags are always relevant to what we're posting and what our business is about, but also to the community at large. So actually the week before I started at Zweig, I created a little just test Instagram page, and I just found really great buildings, just interior design photos from the internet, and I would share them on this Instagram page, and I was able to grow that audience. I mean, to it wasn't very big. It was about 100 people in the first day, but I mean that was just purely organic.
Yeah.
And so I think the design industry needs to leverage Instagram's ability, and then also Pinterest. I think Pinterest is definitely not talked about as much as Instagram and Facebook. Right. I would say the real strength is, with the new stories feature, you can actually sort of authentically tell your own story with the people behind it. And I think people nowadays in social media really care more about the people behind these brands and these companies than they do just about these brands. So it's very important to make sure that you do bring out the life within your company.
Right.
With Facebook, I think the real power is in video. Facebook is a really great platform for video.
Yeah.
And that's only going to get bigger. I think, with Instagram's, it wasn't that long ago when Instagram brought out the video feature. And then also both platforms, they just have a fantastic ad program.
Yeah.
It is amazing how much targeting you can do on both platforms.
We just did the video yesterday.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
Chad was part of that, and
Jordan was
part of that,
exactly.
and you shot it,
Yep.
and I wrote the script, and
Right.
we all kind of collaborated together, and probably within an hour,
Yep.
we had a video that was done. We got granularly focused in terms of the location. So from a geo perspective, geolocation perspective, we hyper focused on one area of the country.
Yep.
For an event that we were doing, and created a nice little simple commercial and got it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple of years ago, you could have never done that,
Yeah.
or you could have just put it out on YouTube and hope for the best.
Right.
But Facebook allows you to kind of really just get
laser
down.
focused.
Exactly. So,
And that's a tremendous value. Also with Facebook, they have the 360 video capabilities.
Yeah.
Which again, in the design industry, in the built environment, that's a huge value add.
Yeah.
If you're able to do like a 360 walkthrough of a really great building that you just designed,
Right.
people want to see that. That's
Yep.
content that people care about nowadays, and the technology to create that is very accessible.
yeah,
You
it's in your pocket.
It is. It
It
really,
really is in
Yeah.
your pocket. So
And then with sort of Snapchat doesn't get talked about as much. People have been saying Snapchat's on its way out. I think Snapchat's about to go through a reinvention.
yeah,
Or they're about to bring out some big features.
with the glasses and everything,
Yeah.
and the lenses. I mean, you're going to be able to. I mean, they're hard to come by right now, but as more and more people get them, I think you're going to see. There's a different play with Snapchat. It's going to be interesting to see what
Yeah.
happens. I mean, people like Gary Vaynerchuk are really bullish on Snapchat,
Yeah.
and that's that's one of my favorite guys. And we'll I'll put a link in the show notes to Gary, because I mean, anybody that doesn't know this guy, he's a real character. He's got a potty mouth, but that's okay. And
Gary Vaynerchuk is the reason why I'm in the marketing area. I'm being completely honest. I remember it was 2 years ago. I was watching some YouTube videos. One of the vloggers on YouTube, Casey Neistat, he was over at Gary's office because he received investments from him, and since then I've been hooked. And Gary's very much, you tell your story, and be quick about it.
Yeah. And I think also Gary's message would resonate with any engineer or architect. His whole idea and his whole persona is, to thine own self be true. Right. I mean, it's don't worry about what other people are doing. Do you.
Yep.
Right. Architects, engineers, those of you guys that are listening to this, just continue to do you. Do what has gotten you guys to where you are now, and figure out where you want to go next. And you don't necessarily have to reinvent yourself, but you do need to be aware of what's out there around you and how you continue to do you based on what is accessible to you. And I think that's just something important to realize and understand. And so, no, I appreciate that, man. And, I didn't want to bring Jordan into the room and not talk to you, man. So I'd love to just, get your thoughts and just some initial feedback based on, just chiming in on what we've been discussing, and would love to find out what your thoughts are about the industry so far. I know you've been doing some M&A research and M&A work, and so. And we certainly appreciate having you here. I mean, you've got an entrepreneurial mind. So, what's your 2 cents to this conversation?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Randy. So, I'll start by saying, having grown up in an engineer's household, I've definitely seen the highs and lows, of working in the industry.
Yep.
Also, during that time, I've gathered a lot of what I like to call 1%. It's the small tidbits, the little bits of information that add up, and a culmination of those 1%. Can be pretty beneficial when you jump into an industry like this. So definitely having kind of an analytical business mind, and also having worked for a couple of architecture, engineering, design firms, it's been very enlightening to kind of bridge the gap, if you will, between working actually in the industry and then coming in to Zweig Group and working in M&A.
Right.
It's definitely been insightful and, really helped facilitate, my process of getting in here and learning what I've been able to learn and help in the ways that I can.
Okay. All right. So how would you, I mean, when you look at the way that we operate here and the way that we run this firm and the way some of these engineering and architectural firms run that, and, what you've kind of experienced at Boxy, how would you compare that?
It's definitely different. Working in M&A and then you really have to learn how to facilitate, negotiate, which, I'm just getting thrown into. And then, when you have your own company, it's a little small startup, it's you have to put in a lot more legwork than you would, coming in and doing something like this here at Zweig Group. It's
right.
A lot more operationally focused. You got to, be very tedious and anal, if you will, focusing on the smaller operations of what you're actually trying to accomplish.
Yeah, well, I think it's okay to be anal sometimes. I mean, sometimes you just have to hyper focus on some things and not, and especially look. As far as I'm concerned, I would hope that every engineer and architect is that way, because I mean, again, the responsibility that they have for what they build is ridiculous. I mean, it's just I get it, and so we expect that. I think one of the big takeaways would be that there's that, and then there's just the overall narrative and story for your organization, for your company, and what you're trying to tell. And just like what you're doing with Boxy, and what we're doing here at Zweig, and what those of you that are listening to this that are doing with your engineering and architectural firms, I mean, you've got to be thinking about the narrative and what you're trying to tell. And it's so important, and it's good that firms are focused on, designing great things and creating pretty drawings and all that other stuff. But you also need to be thinking about what's coming down the road, and certainly for this next generation, the group of gentlemen that are in front of me, all dressed really well and that represent themselves, in such an awesome way. You need to be thinking about how you're going to attract these guys and gals to come to your firm and work with your firm and make it a great place, right? And especially, and I'm talking to you 60-plus-year-old owners that, when you start thinking about ownership transition, you need to have somebody to transition to. And for you young guys, it's not something that you're really thinking about right now. But the reality is that there is a major issue in the design industry, especially when it comes to ownership transition. And I'm kind of switching gears here, but it's the idea that, look, you need to be bringing in new talent, fresh ideas, because then that makes your organization, it continues to make it relevant and valid, and it allows you to kind of pivot when you need to and build on some new ideas that maybe you just didn't have. But if you hire somebody that has them and you can figure out a way to execute them, then as an organization, you're all the better for it. So parting thoughts, any last parting thoughts real quick? I'll just pass the mic around to you three guys. Jordan, you have anything you want to say? No, it's okay. It's all right if you don't have anything. It's fine. So I know Sanjay will say something for you, I'm sure.
No, I've always got something to say. No, I'm just really excited to see how the AA industry evolves. Incorporating digital media, and I'm very excited to be a part of the Zweig Group. I think there's a lot of growth happening here, and I'm really, really just very, very excited to be a part of this.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we're certainly excited to have you and Jordan here for sure. And Mr. Cold Iron.
Yeah, everybody just strap in for the next decade in this industry. I think it's going to be a big one. I know there's going to be a lot of building, a lot of growth, a lot of infrastructure work going on throughout the marketplace. So anyone who's in my position, just try to be ready for it, and then make sure to hop on that opportunity whenever it presents itself.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to Jordan Barrett, Sanjay Jenkins, and Chad Cold Iron. Really appreciate you guys coming on. Folks, I just want to remind you, all the information that you've heard here, we'll certainly have it in our show notes. And if there are any links to anything that were mentioned today, that you'll have access to that online at thezweigletter.com. Wanted to just remind you, if you are listening to this on iTunes, we'd love a 5-star review. If you think it sucks, tell us it sucks, and we'll try to correct it. We get all kinds of feedback and advice here, so we try to be true to ourselves, and in areas where we need to improve, we'll improve. But we can't do it without you, the listening audience. So I really want to encourage you to speak up and let us know what you think. And we've gotten some really great feedback and advice and emails from the listening audience. So please, just let us know, and also share this with your friends. It's really important for you. And I have one more thing I want to share with you, is that we want to thank you for listening to this podcast by offering you a free copy of the Zweig Letter and there's still more, a free subscription to Civil Plus Structural Engineer magazine. You've heard it right. I'm giving you a free magazine. Just visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com, and everything that you need is there. A link to all of this information, including contact information for our guests, will be in our show notes. You can follow these guys on Twitter and on Instagram, and we'd love it if you just let us know what you think about this podcast. I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to Zweig Group Media, part of Zweig Group. We thank you so much for enjoying this podcast, and we look forward to talking with you soon. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to this special edition Zweig Letter podcast. We hope that you can apply Mark's no-holds-barred advice to your daily professional life. For a free 6-week subscription of the Zweig Letter, please visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.